the game mechanics of Fez, I would like to speak about. Fez isn't a very... I just want to make sure during this podcast, I don't really mind if people talk over each other as long as it's like within reasonability. And this is the thing I want to talk about in game mechanics. There's a little bit of room for chaos. The game that I'm speaking of right now is called Fantasy or Zero, and we all know that Squaresoft just went bankrupt because they made Final Fantasy X-13. Anybody got any comments on that? And the game mechanics of a RPG and how they changed or haven't changed over time?
I'm actually going to start on a lower level than that to introduce the mechanics and not just talk about them, because this is, non-gamers as well going to school. Yeah. So, I mean, people might not be familiar with levels, health, attack, defense, dodge, accuracy, all those stats. So, we should start off talking about what those stats mean and then go further and get into more of the complexities of how game systems use those stats and create different things. So, I guess to start, basically, most RPGs or a lot of games that aren't RPGs use the same kind of statistics. Levels represent like a character's strength, power, thus overall. Health is usually.
I beg to disagree about what a level is. But go on.
We can debate that more. But just general right now. Very general. Like think Dragon Warrior and Final Fantasy 1.
I think the best way to describe what a level is like a degree. But a series of degrees that you get over time. That's better, because I kind of felt the way we put it before. It was like, whatever. Okay.
Yeah. And so all these games use that setup to kind of stratify where characters are in terms of power in games. So you'll have, when you just start out, you'll usually be a low level. You'll fight some monsters or something. However the battle systems would work. And upon victory you earn experience points, which eventually will rise your level. You level up and gain more power. Maybe unlock new skills or unlock other things for your character.
Costumes.
Yeah, whatever the game does. So, to start off from that, there even with just that much, there's a lot of ways that games do leveling. Experience curves, how much experience it takes from one level to the next. Usually experience is a numerical value. You get like 100 points, let's say, for killing one enemy, and you need 1,000 points to level up to level 2, let's just say. A lot of games use systems similar to that. And then what some games do is, let's say level 2 takes 2,000 experience to level. So in some games like World of Warcraft, if you kill an enemy that's level 1 at level 2, you will get less experience. So now that level 1 enemy is not worth 100 XP, it's worth 80 XP. And so it takes even more kills to level up. And even just at that low level,
I would like
low level of complexity.
I would like to build it up like this. If we're trying to reach another audience, we're still confusing them, don't you think?
Yeah.
So here, let me give it a shot.
Okay.
Everything is we're gonna go. Everything is similar to the military. You pass a test, you get recognized for it, and you get evolved for bigger missions. That's pretty much the essence of all video games, right? And the ultimate goal of it sometimes with RPGs is to teach a didactic story, right? Like Final Fantasy teaches didactic stories. So let's just sum up video games quickly. So I'm pretty sure everybody's played Tetris. The essence of video games is pretty much understood. Especially in Tetris, though, you don't really go... The levels don't get harder, they just get faster. So as you progress through any video game, as you touch a controller, right? Any graphic user interface, any way you can talk to your phone, you go through, levels where things get more difficult and more faster, you have more access to technology. So on game mechanics, how fluid is it when you touch the video game? When you interact with a digital media, what does it feel like? Is it fluid? Is it not? And this is what we're talking about in game mechanics.
Do you want to start with that?
Yeah, let's do that. And then we can understand physics as well. So let's just start something like this. Oh, go on.
First of all, I'd like to introduce ourselves. We are the Arapahoe Community College Gaming Club. And I haven't spoken before, but my name is Grant.
Christopher.
Jonathan.
Anyone else who is here? We are also joined by...
Ian.
Jesse and Ian, and Carl and David.
But now let's go through and say our titles after.
Oh yes, the president of the gaming club, game degree of game design and development.
Christopher Vice President, degree chemical engineering. Hopefully.
I'm Ian, and I'm just currently doing Associate of General Studies here.
Jonathan Cohen, I'm doing game design development with a heavy emphasis on programming and computer science.
And Jesse Heeman, also in game design. A lot of programming.
Did you? Aren't you our treasurer?
I don't know what technically we are.
Yeah.
I think I'm the secretary.
I think, yeah, John's the secretary.
Right?
Remember, I'm the treasurer.
Yeah, and Jesse Heeman is the treasurer, and David Ballin is not here right now. He's our robotics consultant.
Yeah,
I like to count for his absence.
He had work.
Hey, you guys over there, speak up. Say your names.
I'm David. I'm Carl.
Thank you.
Lazy
Right.
buns.
So back to the
Physics.
Fluid movement. I really think that that's a big part of games because
We gotta
when you
talk-
play games, you don't just play them. You don't just hammer on the controller. You feel what's happening on screen.
If you push forward, how long does it take for your character to slide forward or move forward? And this is now we're talking about 2D. Like, you know, it's okay to be. You don't have to curse. I'll try not to curse because I'm a cursor, and I'll note for the record. Please edit me out. And I hope you don't have to. The thing about physics is, you talking about 2D or 3D? You know, the physics of Halo. So are we gonna go 2D crazy, or should we? What do you guys want to start with that?
I think 2D actually would be the good place to start because that's where gaming started, and it's probably where people have thought a lot more about physics in games. So I guess Mega Man is that's one everyone knows, and that's
Yes.
a good place to start because people have already picked it apart pretty well.
Let's go Mario. I
Let's
think
go
it's
Mario.
more original.
All right, so
Nice.
I do think that's a good spot. And with Mario, so let's go Super Mario Brothers on the NES. So you had the D-pad. You could move left or right. You just walk left or right on screen. You could jump with A, and you could hold down B to run.
Where's A in placement of the fingers?
Oh,
I guess that's
that's-
design, and I guess it doesn't go into physics. But go on, sorry.
Yeah, the physics. So I mean, from a gameplay perspective, from me sitting down playing the game, how it feels. Being able to hold down a button to run and speed up the pace of the game. That's one thing that
Was that you're talking about Super?
Super Mario Brothers and on the NES, the first one. So
you
the
could
first-
run in that game?
Yes, you could. You could hold down the B button and you could run.
Oh, you're absolutely right. Oh my God, my memory fails me, sir. Go on.
So, I mean, even at that point, game designers realized that there should be a way to speed up games, because, or at least to change the pace of the game. Pacing is important with movement. If I'm playing a game and it has a really large world and I move really slowly, I'll get frustrated because I move so slowly. Game designers quickly
Like
learned
what
that.
game, for example?
Mostly a lot of MMOs, I guess. They limit the movement speed of players specifically to make it.
And what's an
take more time.
MMO for just? The
Oh
record?
yes, so on massively multiplayer online games. They have absolutely huge worlds, but then they also have very slow movement speeds to make you take time.
What game are we? Oh, we.
Just in general. I mean,
Okay.
World of Warcraft has a pretty big world.
Just in general, it's a thing in video games. Why walk somewhere where you could run? You never just walk anywhere in a video game unless it's for like atmosphere purposes.
Yeah.
If you're in a survival horror game where you're trying to survive from ghosts or something like that. But everywhere else, you would always just run as fast as you can everywhere.
Unless they tie it into the gameplay, like with Counter-Strike or Call of Duty, where running makes sound and other players can hear you.
About the running aspect, Grand Theft Auto 3 was probably one of the worst for having to run, because when you were walking, it's literally like you're taking 5 seconds for each step.
You have to tap X to run in that
Yeah.
game, and you just have to
Yeah.
keep tapping.
Well, you know
Yes,
the
and that's
interesting
really
thing.
annoying.
You know the interesting thing. See, annoying. Okay, I guess like with the aspect of trying to make better video games, right? It's which we would think would be more appealing to the person. It's about thumb placement for me. For a guy who's been through the Nintendo, have you ever held a Nintendo? I mean, a Nintendo controller is so small. I bought one for my computer with 2 analog buttons in the middle and a start and select and whatnot. And I noticed that, well, I guess my hands, I don't know how big my hands are to the average person, but when you have to push XX and move,
On SNES, NES controller, N64, which controller are you talking
oh,
about?
all of them. Like,
All-
okay, no, the small one that I
Yeah,
was speaking of,
specifically.
I was talking about the first NES.
Okay.
And that controller now, well, I was a kid, so it was huge to me at the time. You know, well, I'm just saying, when it comes to game physics, it really depends on the system. You know what I mean? Most
Yeah.
people have to spend how much more extra money on the development team, the programming team, right, to make the physics match the system. So
well, any game on any system can have whatever physics the programmers decide for it, but it's something like a lot of games have very hard to control physics, I think, and that's where it comes in.
which game and what's the difficulty? I gotta know if you're gonna be. I want to be specific about that.
See, well, on the N64, for example, there were a lot of games that had really bad camera control, and I mean, at the time they were limited. They only had one analog stick, and they didn't know that assigning another analog stick to control the camera was actually a good idea. So they had a lot of games that used automatic camera placement, where the camera would quickly warp around the character if you walked too far in one direction, or things like if you pressed up against a wall, the camera would go through the wall and you wouldn't be able to see the character. The wall was in the way.
And this is which MMO we were talking about?
No. I'm talking about on the N64. A lot of just various games
Okay.
on the N64.
I feel like maybe I feel like it's better, even if somebody doesn't know about video games, or if they try to actually research what we're talking about, right, and play the video games
and
we're talking
let them
about. We should at least reference a few video games so we can like use the attributes in that video game. Mega Man X, okay, it had great games physics for certain reasons, all right, and we don't for the listener. I'd like to point out the dash, double X dash, move up, move down. In a 2D screen, you could jump and move an extra amount of distance using this skill and slide down walls to help you move around. But the thing that's problematic to me is that you always have to build levels around that physical movement. You can't really put like Sonic the Hedgehog, dude.
Yeah.
There'd be stuff across the map that only one dude could do or knew how to do in a game. So, you know, go ahead.
No, that's fine. Just keep, that has to do with level design. That's how levels are designed when you know the player can do certain things. And that's something that you have to take into account when you're actually building levels, and that's what developers take into account when they build levels usually. So
No, I agree. Well, what I was getting at is like, okay, I guess here's the subject of topic. What's all right, let's take a game. What would be the physics that you changed about that game?
So in terms of what is
whatever, but it has
you?
to be a game we all played though.
Okay.
You can't just pick a game that no one knows or we can't really reference it. And I
Yeah,
forgot
so
I
I
need to get
guess-
more pizza. Go on.
Yeah. So then we keep going with Mega Man X.
Okay, wow,
so,
I hate
'cause
that. Well, I don't hate Mega Man. It's one of the greatest games of all time, but that guy kind of played this out already.
Yeah, but I think that going off of Ego Raptor is actually a pretty good thing, because people have seen it, they know what he's talked about, and well, he brought up good points, how they expanded the field of play rather than focusing on a single screen at a time in Mega Man Classic, moving to really large stages in Mega Man X.
The weird thing is like Mega Man X, there's no more 2D like that though anymore. The physics of that game is like talking about dropping a pencil from the sky. You know, I guess we're really talking about 3D physics. You know, and lag. That's the thing I think happens in MMOs.
Yeah,
massive
right, but that has
multiplayer.
to do with networking, and that's not necessarily physics itself.
Yeah,
But
look,
it
I think
can
physics
happen
should.
with physics lag.
You know what I think is a good idea? Ooh, I love having ideas rather than just critiquing people. You should probably make a physics based on lag. You ever think about that? What do you think about that, John?
Well,
Is that
that would
possible?
actually be an interesting idea to put lag time like on two computers networked together playing a game, to have the time in between the computers affect how the physics play out. That would be an interesting thing to do, but it would probably have some pretty unpredictable results.
Really?
You'd probably get stuff like things shooting across the screen if one player suddenly spikes. So
It's true.
yeah.
Well, that's the only problem I kind of see with the game physics. I don't know. So like special attacks and movements. Do you think that a game should have physics based on a realistic atmospheric pressures, and should you make a game based off of science, and would it be fun? You know,
I don't know if it would be fun. Realism allows things to be more accessible, but fun, you're playing a fighting game right now, and it definitely has some realism to it with the physics, so jumping, moving around, getting knocked back from attacks, but they don't make it completely real. They change some of the stuff. I mean, if you were punched, you wouldn't fly across the room. You would just, maybe take a few steps back. You wouldn't go flying. And that has to do with the fun of the game. Being able to knock people around makes the game more fun. And well, you can't always do that in real life.
Well, I guess you're right. Like FIFA or something like that or whatnot.
Yes.
Yeah.
But those games are built around the real mechanics of sports games, so they're more simulation than game. I think it's important to note that some games try to be a simulation, like Arma. Mech Warrior is actually trying to be a mech sim, not a mech game.
Which game is this? I haven't even remembered it.
Which?
Well, I guess
Like
the reason why we're all over the place. You got to take sports game, RPG, fighter.
Yeah, there's too many
side
genres
scroller,
to
there's
talk
too many
about.
genres. So which
With
one
so
do
many
we?
mechanics.
Well, 2D is dead. I kind of think that the best way to start this whole topic off is what's popular now. It's okay for us to talk about what games are popular.
Near
We talk-
realistic physics.
Yes, and that's popular, but that's not always fun.
Like,
Oh, come on.
Why not?
Always fun.
Open
Not
forum,
always.
just let it go.
Red Faction Guerrilla was practically a pinnacle for games that went from other consoles into PC. You ended up with situations where literally the PC was better than the consoles.
Yeah, but that's.
Red
Sorry.
Faction Gorilla.
No, he.
Yeah.
If you're gonna interrupt, I mean, as
No,
long as
no.
you have something good to say, say it. There's no reason to be ridiculous. What were you gonna say, John? About we're talking about which game now?
Red
Red
Faction
Faction.
Gorilla.
Okay, and how is
Red
it?
Faction Guerrilla, yeah, that was a really interesting game. The whole point behind it was that you actually had to collect scrap to get it anywhere.
I never
Also, the whole point about that game is you could destroy anything you wanted except the ground. There were buildings everywhere. You could take a sledgehammer, you could hammer at a wall, and that wall would chip away. You could use a variety of destructive weapons to
You could
use the
even
environment as a weapon.
You could even have a weapon that would actually eat your target.
Yeah,
And it
dis-
was called the Nanoforge.
destructible
But that's-
environments are always rather interesting to interact with.
So let's say it like
especially
this.
When you can watch
You
it build
everything moves
disintegrate
at the same
practically
speed,
from
right?
nothing.
But if you walked over
Yeah.
a hole that you drilled in the ground, would you like fall into that hole? Let's say I kept chipping at a wall. When you
Yeah,
walked
like
into that wall,
Minecraft.
would you walk into the wall and walk back out? You get what I'm saying, right? You just keep
It would-
holding left and up
It would
towards.
destroy the wall
I
and you'd
take
be
it
able to
you're
walk
thinking
right through it.
along the lines of Minecraft.
But if you just
No, it's a.
if you damaged it a little bit, would you just like go like this? Like you're moving and you go like that because
They can't see that, but
yeah,
it
it's
depends on. I don't know. How did that work?
I played
If
the
you
game.
destroyed part of something.
I know.
Yeah,
Mace-
you could go through the hole pretty easily, but
No, not story.
just walking through it, you literally were putting yourself in a
Go
danger.
back. Go back.
If there was a tiny hole, is this what you're talking about? If there was like partially obstructed
Yeah,
way,
yeah, but
you
then
would
you-
slide off of it kind of and
Yeah.
keep going?
Well, let's put it like this: if there's a 6 foot thick wall, and I blasted out 3 feet of it, could I like duck inside of the blasted out part of the wall and shoot out? You couldn't do anything
Nah,
like
there
that.
wasn't even
So
6
like
foot,
the fact that you
thick
can interact
walls
with
in
the
Faction.
the fact that you can interact with the things around you doesn't mean that it's going to affect the physics. You know,
The gameplay. It's not
Yeah.
going to affect the gameplay.
or the mechanics. I mean, but if it doesn't serve any strategical purpose, I don't see why you would put it
You
in the
could
game.
do something like that to an extent. They have a cover system where you can attach to a piece of cover and automatically your controls would change so that you would be able to shoot around
Like
it
Gears
while
of
still
War?
being in cover. Yes, like Gears of War, something like that. It didn't work all the time, but if you wanted to create a chest-high wall out of a wall, then you might be able to do something like that.
That's
But
awesome.
It
I
doesn't
actually really
protect.
love the part where you get out of cover because you can actually just jump over the wall.
Apologies for going on a tangent, but cover systems are another thing that are rather interesting. I mean,
What's
What?
a cover system?
taking cover behind something.
Oh,
I get you.
Cover, okay.
Yeah, cover system.
Yeah, for some
And-
reason I thought you were talking about a console.
No, but Star Wars: The Old Republic, that's got a rather unique cover system.
Are you talking about the MMO,
Yeah, it's
the new one?
yeah, the new one that came out in December. That you could just easily, if you were a particular class, a smuggler on the Republic side or an Imperial agent on the other side, you could easily take cover behind. As you came up to an object, you'd see places where you could take cover behind that object. You could, if it was a piece of debris, you could crouch behind it, or.
How much fire would it take up though? Is it like absurd? Like a chair could block an M16, or what?
That's not. Well, it gives you a defensive bonus.
How much of one? That's my question.
I don't know precisely how much it is, but another thing that's interesting is it gives you those two classes actually have extra quick slots or hotkey bars that you could put abilities in, and they also had certain abilities that could work only when you were in cover.
Cover systems in MMOs.
Wow, that's
just
awesome.
As a thing, cover systems are normally in massively multiplayer online games because of how they work. There's normally you just walk around in an open field and click on stuff until it dies, but having
That's
cover
one way to
systems
say
is it groundbreaking? I don't know. I haven't played the game.
Well-
Does it change the game much?
I haven't tried the
Back
classes
is auto
that
block.
much, but it doesn't. It's definitely an interesting little experience. I mean, every class has something that makes it unique.
Mm-hmm.
In what game?
Star Wars: The Old Republic.
This is a Star Wars game, so if you're behind cover, it's really not going to stop someone whacking at you with a lightsaber
Yeah.
if he's on the same side that you.
So
Yeah.
as far as the game mechanics, is it supposed to make you feel like you're in a Star Wars world, or is the gravity change? See, this is the thing I wanted to talk about, is making it like, there's ways to go with game mechanics, like the game Portal. If we're going to talk about game mechanics, that game is fascinating. Where you can shoot a hole in the wall and show it through the, if you can shoot a hole in the wall and show up on the other end, I don't like games that, well, when it comes to game mechanics, war seems like a finite gaming philosophy. Do you guys remember the game with the paintbrush and the dog? I forget. We were playing Kami, right? The video games are going to start heading towards that. So the game physics of a man killing another man is, I think it's getting old. But and physics shouldn't really respond around an enemy. You get what I'm saying? It might be just an obstacle, like in a Vagrant Story, when there was more puzzles in that game. There's also Disgaea. But, in puzzle making physics, I think that if you're going to move fast, like we started off originally talking about with the run, every game should actually have a speed up button. There's games like that in the Gigabyte game.
Isn't there a game like that that's based on the idea of trying to survive a massive disaster
and just running
controlling
away?
the emergency services?
Really?
I can't remember the name, but it's definitely in existence.
Well, as far as game mechanics are concerned, I feel that you're going to have to probably innovate new gameplays to really get into a conversation about game mechanics, because speed and stuff, like you can play, the seizures that happened, right? With the kids that were in in Japan playing
Flashing lights and stuff.
flashing lights and stuff. Like, I think physics has to have the perfect motion to it. But I don't like the physics of Zelda.
Just seizure-prone kids that were
man,
tricked
Mars
to be
Matrix
Well,
able to
has
have
to be
patterns.
one
I don't know
Right.
the details, but I'm pretty sure that anything that can incite a seizure can't be good for anybody. It's probably not good for our retinas,
Well,
but I guess you do some research on that.
Yeah, Mars Matrix, I've noticed that after a while, like if I've been playing for like 2 or 3 hours, I'll start to feel pretty sluggish.
Which game?
The Mars Matrix for the Dreamcast.
I've never played that game before. I
have it with me right here.
Well, I mean, like if games are gonna keep going the way they are, game physics. All right, what's the best game physics you can say that came out for a game that came out this year? I'm calling Naruto because it's the only one I've been playing. Naruto's off the hook, man. I'm loving that game.
I would make a comment, but I honestly am broke.
Which game?
Well,
I would comment in a heartbeat.
On what game?
Any game, considering that we'd probably end up buying something if we can afford it.
Oh, you mean the games are too expensive?
No, not really that they're expensive, just that I don't get much money.
Not that it's expensive, just that you're poor. We're all poor. We're all poor college
I want
students.
to
Yes.
take it up with
Well, I don't see why it's
scary
anything to be proud of.
thing. They have this thing about spending government money on entertainment and how it's not appropriate.
Ow.
I think it's kind of
Fuck
sad.
that.
Right.
Sorry.
Well, I mean, as far as do you think when you buy a game that's more expensive, you get better game mechanics? Let's talk about Skyrim.
I don't think so. I think that
Skyrim.
I think that a lot of the more expensive games have less innovative stuff. I think, especially with Skyrim, actually. I mean, yeah, you have mods and stuff, but that's for PC. And honestly, Skyrim did not do much new than the previous
Elder Scrolls
games have. New world, new stuff, some new skills, but they, as far as mechanics go, they actually, I think, took a few steps backwards.
They actually removed some things like making your own spells.
Yes.
They removed that from the
Well, if
From the
we're,
world.
from the last game.
so if we're talking about game mechanics, I guess we're gonna save this podcast and it's gonna be practice session because
Yeah.
you're probably gonna have to ask yourself, what game did you play recently, and what's up with the game mechanics? Because we're talking about the most recent games.
Yeah.
What? Just start listing the games that came out. What came out recently that was supposed to be a big hit? Why?
Battlefield.
Really? How did it go?
Battlefield.
How did it go with game mechanics? Is it the same game as last time or what?
It's basically the same as Bad Company 2. Where to start? Destructible environment, so you can blow a hole in the wall of a building. If you blow enough holes in the walls of a building, it will collapse. As far as game feel for the player, you press a button, you move. Guns are very organic. You can't really get too accurate with a gun, just because of the way shooting works in the game. Guns have a lot of recoil. There's a lot of bullet spread. Unlike let's an example to another FPS, Wolfenstein Enemy Territory. All the guns have no recoil. They just shoot in a straight line, no matter where you're aiming. They shoot right where you're aiming every time. They don't have any recoil, any spread, or at least the guns everyone uses. The machine guns and I think the auto sniper did have some spread, but the Garand, and the
Is this
submachine
surface
guns-
area? This is surface area versus enemies that move
it's-
at what speed though?
No, it's
Like, what's the fastest speed of the enemy in that game, and what's the slowest speed of the enemy in that game?
that's the thing. Is Battlefield's a lot slower paced, and there's a lot of bullet spread. In Wolfenstein ET, you moved a lot faster. You'd be able to run and jump and keep your momentum. So you could keep jumping, even if you're running out of stamina. You could keep just dashing and jumping and move quickly around the map. So it's for a lot faster movement, of course, and you have to have more accuracy when you're moving faster.
For Battlefield 3,
In order to hit
speaking on
people.
movement, I didn't notice this in the last game that it had. It's the third in the sequel, hence Battlefield 3. But one thing you could do, you could smoothly vault over objects while you were moving. If there was something in front of you, you could just tap the X button and your soldier would smoothly jump over it and continue his motion. That's something I liked. I didn't see that in the past previous games.
I actually thought that you slowed down a bit when you were vaulting over something.
You might slow down a bit.
In a lot of other games, in a lot of older games especially, you could just jump over stuff. You could cleanly jump over stuff and keep all your momentum.
But in this game, it's like a canned movement.
Yeah.
It's like a context-specific thing you can only do if you're in front of a certain object. Then your character, you'll see your legs like fly over the thing and you'll slide across it. Oh, that's something that you never see in other games, really.
Well,
you never see your legs.
You see a lot your legs in other games, but not in all of them.
Not in all of them.
Well,
It's-
in some old games like Duke Nukem and Doom, if they tried to do that with Oni with a first-person situation, you're gonna look at they're gonna try to have the first-person situation. The game physics that I desire are the ones from anime, where you can actually really, really do something that's in anime that's just gangster.
Just like
not gangster.
something
How do I say? You use a lot of agility and acrobatic skill, but you're still controlling the character while you do it. You know that I think
how in this fighting game we're playing, how a lot of the moves for characters are just animations. They're not. You don't actually control the character through the whole thing.
and if you could make it so somebody can speed up and slow down in movement, like you have to have on a skateboard you have a kickflip. If you had a kickflip in every game, like XX circle is run until you're tired, and XX is just sprint, which is the way it was for most Super Nintendo games, you would have some solidarity of games so they could be versus each other. Because there's no reason for game physics to change. It really just, it changes the gamer, right? You know, if I have Mortal Kombat timing, you know, it's really about timing, right? When you get to a ledge, do you jump? You get what I'm saying, and that's pretty much the ultimate physics. And but we have to, I think we're gonna have to explain hitboxes, right?
Yeah.
And like I forget what they're called. Oh man, my memory. When you come up to the end of a ledge, it lets you know that you're
Auto jump?
No, when you're at the edge of a ledge, the programming that tells the ledge that it's there. You know what I'm saying? Like, because there used to be a way in Tenchu so you could jump right after you walked off. That's the way you do it in Mario, right? If you really want to reach the top of the flag, you jump to the very edge, and your tiptoe is the last thing that touches the edge. You know what I mean? I think a lot of games that have that kind of hitbox situation in it, that changes the physics greatly. Because you could, if you have to jump from here, or if you have to jump from distance A, and the edge of that, the distance from where you jump to the edge is 3 inches, and you have edge B, or your foot is in placement B, and it's in like 1 inch to jump, you can still jump even if you're off the cliff with your foot. That changes the game physics altogether.
That's why if you played Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time and the other Legend of Zelda games, they have something where you walk off the edge and you automatically jump when you reach the edge.
Wow.
So there's no need to practice timing for that. It's
Do you think that makes the gameplay more fluid? I think
it makes it more fluid.
It takes it lack of skill. I like playing video games to kind of help my mind get faster and understand how physics work. But you know,
There is no jump button in
there's no
that
jump button
game.
at all.
wow.
So that's the only way to jump is to get off of an edge.
What, have you never played that game?
No, I have not.
How dare you?
I have committed mass sacrilege.
And the game is also a puzzle game, so it's to allow. Well, I mean, when you design a game or when a game is made, I guess they design for a specific something. So if they want to make a puzzle game, they're probably not going to put a lot of need
physics,
for skill in understanding physics and movement and stuff. They're going to be focused on making.
Don't you think that kills a game,
puzzles.
or am I ridiculous, or is it just for a different type of gamer? I don't.
Just
like
a different type of gamer, I think.
If you wanted to play puzzle games, I don't see why you just do Sudoku puzzles all day. Why pick up a control if you're not going to test your dexterity?
Maybe there's some physics in the puzzles. For example, there are some things where you would need to drop a box on something or drop something into water, and that physics are needed. But not for controlling a character. Controlling a jump is largely not a part of the game. In that case, it's more about the room that you're in and what you need to move to the next room.
I think it was pretty cool in Portal that you could actually make a portal between 2 points and actually be on a high ledge and then shoot down to put a portal down and go through it and have it accelerate you to another ledge.
Yeah, and
Speedy thing goes in, speedy thing comes out.
And
really,
that's what puzzle games are all about is figuring out how to use what you're given to solve a puzzle.
Well, the game physics in the game, I mean, if they move faster, like Tetris, it's fast. It's still a puzzle game. You know,
it's just a different type of puzzle game.
Because I feel that when you talk about game mechanics, you're talking about slow and fast, right? It's not even really about if you can move every part of a character's body. So much,
it's
right?
About inputs and knowing what they do.
They could make the sensitivity. You could blow on a controller and make a character move. If they really wanted it to happen based on the velocity, you know. And the thing about I think that game shouldn't. The game physics change how long you play it.
Well,
because if I play a slow game, I don't care. You know what I'm saying. RPGs tend to be slow.
But there's also
first-person shooters.
RPGs, and there's also slow-paced FPS. It depends on what the actual
first-person shooter, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm clearing it up anyway.
Yes. But there are slow-paced FPS. If you look at something like Quake, Quake is a very fast-paced FPS. I think that there's no doubt about that. When pro players will turn over 90 degrees, headshot a player, and then turn right back within less than half of a second. Yeah,
Are you serious?
Fast-paced.
Yeah, that was pretty fun to watch. I actually went to one of those tournaments.
Yes, I mean, there's, well, not headshot, I guess railgun. Railgun is the sniper rifle. I don't think there's hitboxes for the head,
Okay.
separate from the rest of the body. But that is just how fast-paced the game can be. And there's also other things like leading for rockets and stuff, and that happens so quickly. It really is hard to follow if you're not thinking at that speed.
I'm pretty good
and then
with
there's
rockets
stuff.
in Halo 3.
Mhm.
So there's a blast area, right?
I not only nail a person, even when they're moving, I can also do pretty good with avoiding them.
What do you think would be interesting if people got killed by earshot?
What? Like
Earshot?
Yeah, if you can hear the explosion happen, you're dead.
that would be a really interesting mechanic.
Because
I think.
Well, the thing is I noticed that most hit shots from bazookas, I'm like, yeah, right, you hit me. I saw it, right? But I'm dead. Like, the hitboxes are too big for certain explosions. I mean, the game mechanics, I feel, always influence the type of mentality that the demographic who's buying the game wants. Like NFL Blitz, right?
Yeah.
You're hurting people in that game. It's just people who don't even care about football. They just love the hits and moving around. And then there's Madden and people who like the strategy. I guess that goes from RPG back to, side scroller. But the physics of it all, I mean, I guess game mechanics in my issue, they're either going to go to reality or they're going to have a Street Fighter trademark timing. You get what I'm saying? All 2D games have like this timing that's like what we're playing right now are kind of hard, right?
Yeah, there's a lot of,
it's
timing involved in
there's
it.
no difference between it in 1980s.
Well, there's a lot of differences.
No, Marvel vs. Capcom, I don't think it's too much different than Marvel vs. Capcom timing.
Yeah, Marvel vs. Capcom was the battle between two different comic book worlds.
I got that. I'm just saying that the timing, but I guess you make a great point. That is my point.
I
Go ahead.
mean, like, a comic book world versus a video game.
Yeah.
Well, the thing is they had to offset the timing possibly for some of the animations that they made, right? Like the animations that they made in for the cartoons of X-Men, let's say, from Wolverine, like being yah. They couldn't make it as fast as they want, or slow as they did in Street Fighter. So when you're merging two gaming techniques, I guess that's what I'm getting at. Is there an ultimate game mechanic? Is there an ultimate timing?
I think that all games are designed, well, I mean, if you actually look at what games are, any set of mechanics gives advantage to one style of play or another. You don't have an ultimate game that balances everything equally. That's would take so much time and effort.
Dynasty Warriors?
It's like that in the real world, though.
Yeah, I mean, there's always something that has the advantage.
Gravity is pretty much negative 9.8
Well,
meters per second.
But that also
squared.
is based off what planet you're on.
Yeah, it's true. But we don't make games based on other planets. We always make games.
Halo 3 was
but
awesome.
There are games on the moon.
There's a lot of games that are based on space worlds and stuff. And
What's the last couple of games we played with space rolls? Halo, right?
Halo's
got the space airplane, right?
Metroid. I mean, they have different gravity and stuff based off of what planet it's on, and that's one of the things is physics we're finding is really relative to where you are in the universe. I mean, it's not absolute.
Is physics the whole mechanics of the game? I think
the mechanics are different than physics. Physics is the world of the game and how things interact inside the world, and mechanics is more the numbers behind everything, more how or what something does.
The greater the physics in the game, the more processing speed the system needs. And I kind of think that if you could always make a very more elaborate like 2D game or like 3D cell shaded. And let's explain 3D cell shading because I want to talk about this.
Okay.
We have 2D vectors. Who lost? You cheesed him, Grant. I watched that happen. That was horrible. That's what I'm saying. His timing made sure that he couldn't get up in the game. And that's just ridiculous. There's got to be...
He
There's
could.
another character
Technically,
that
he could.
That has cheese
I
like
can.
that.
I can
cheese somebody next round.
I
don't do that because that's not fair, though. But see, that's one thing that this fighting game allows for is cheese.
It's cheese,
It's cheese. And that's what the mechanics of the game allow for. Hit stun and knockback when you're in a corner. Just make it so you can't get out unless they mess up.
And so the hit stun, let's talk about the game mechanics. I guess we actually should be on the board with this one. We'll go over this one next week too, okay? The difference in between the time. We need to get a stopwatch. and find out the distance between the time that you're down on the ground and you can get up.
That is all documented already.
Yeah, it's
For
all-
any
yeah.
fighting game.
Well, then next
This
time
is
we
the
play
thing.
one, we should try to write it on the board.
Well, anyone who plays games like this at a professional level, and there's a lot of people who play this game in tournaments, they know the timing for everything.
I know I do.
Oh.
That's with fighting games. It's like impossible barrier of entry unless you want to be good. You have to memorize every single character's moves and
Yep.
You have to
how
train
long
like it's
it
a martial
takes.
art.
Yeah, you have
You
to.
have to train.
Timing.
It's like a real thing.
Yes.
It is a thing. It's not like a thing, it is a thing.
No, and that's the thing we're talking about. I mean, I guess you can argue that it's more profitable to have a one way. See, this is the thing. Game physics, I guess you could put this under the category of why people don't play fighting games.
Yeah.
Is because they don't have that kind of dedication. That's what I'm talking about. Laziness in the mind control sector is so important in video games.
But one of the things is that
nice,
people
huh?
who play video games are much more motivated than people who don't play video games. That's arguable, but that's what research has so far backed, is that people who do play video games actually are much more motivated.
It's what it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, especially if you consider all the stuff that they're actually doing in the game. I mean, of course, they're not doing stuff in their life, but the amount of stuff that they do is much more than somebody who doesn't play games. They do a lot more stuff, even if that stuff isn't important to other people.
Yes, I agree. Well, okay, that's a point to be made. I believe personally, in contradiction to that fact, is that video game. God, you were just cheesing out, Grant. God, or whoever. I'll play again if I can. When we're talking about game mechanics, the best ones I've seen are awesome reloads, the ones that move, people who feel like they're in a simulation military environment. But as far as 2D games, I want to sum it up. You should have a decent anime like. You should have a universal timing method, which they're working on these days. But games like Pong and stuff like that, it's obsolete.
But it still had timing. Pong had timing. You would have the timing for the ball going back and forth.
The Gears of War games
You'd have
actually
to-
have a reload timing where you get it.
I'm
within a
saying they're
certain
obsolete
spot,
to be played because
and
they
you
don't
actually have
have
bonus.
the same game mechanics as everything else does, right? Like the game.
Arguable.
Okay, you know what game really changed it is Metroid. You want to talk about moving fast and game mechanics throughout a game? It made
Speed
it
booster.
spawned so many. You were such a cheater. You know that, Grant? I just want to point that out. If as far as I'm concerned, 2D games have universal timing. 3D games can be changed based on Earth and what's
Well,
going on in it.
But depends on the game itself, because I mean, you could make a very, very slow-paced 2D game or very, very fast-paced 2D game with
Who
regards
would
to the
play a 2D slow bait? Who would play a slow game? I don't understand it.
Have you ever seen Worms? Heard of
Yeah,
Worms?
I love Worms.
And
That's
Worms is
turn-based.
slow-paced.
Yeah, it's turn-based.
technically really slow because
Well, there's
it's
no
turn-based.
game mechanics in the game where you're basically playing chess. That's what I'm saying. They should have like a chess speed for
Well,
2D.
You mean
There is
something
a
that
such
you
thing
can...
as chess.
It's like chess. The thing about chess is every person from every country and every language can play chess. Straight up. And it's the
Just
same
about.
thing with Street Fighter, too. You don't have to speak the same
Street
language as
Fighter.
person. Well, I play people from Europe all the time.
Uh-huh.
Or StarCraft. See,
yeah, StarCraft.
well,
But-
game mechanics. See, the thing is like the word game mechanics to me means a lot more, right? Because in real game mechanics, the way how long it takes you to build 6 ACVs if you're clicking on the screen a little bit faster than someone else is ridiculous. Like there is no real game mechanics. It's just pretty much you learn the timing. But when you say game mechanics, I guess we're talking about okay. After 3 minutes, I should be able to accomplish this. In any game, you should know what you're doing in 3 minutes, if you can.
Well, in
Now-
any game of StarCraft,
or any game of any game in 3 minutes.
you should be able to figure out what things do.
Well, yeah, and have a pretty good concept of time. Or, how do I put this? In 3 minutes, he knows to do his super move in a Street Fighter game. You know, after you've taken a couple of hits and...
But does he have previous experience playing fighting games?
Yeah,
That
so-
would be the thing. You'd have experience with similar games. And
Exactly.
that's what a lot of things are, is you have genres that have very similar games inside of each genre.
I'm just trying to figure, like... Are we talking game mechanics like when I choose my character in this game? Like if I click around a screen with 16 choices in little boxes? That's game mechanics.
That's choosing your character, what you're going to play, how you're going to play the match. indirect to the actual
Or-
game. That's kind of before the game.
Or are we talking about Are we talking about game mechanics as in the time versus learning curve? Right?
No, that's learning curve. That would be, something that's metagame mechanics, I guess. Not really inside the game mechanics, but it's kind of outside of it. So metagame mechanics.
Because if we're talking about the physics of a game,
Mhm.
then we probably have to compare two, period.
Yeah, speaking of
Like Modern Warfare and Red Faction. Go on.
Mm-hmm.
speaking of comparing game mechanics, let's go for something. Let's take a couple minutes to compare like Star Fox
Okay.
and Ace Combat.
That's comparable in the sense that you both fly planes in them.
Yeah,
Is one 3D and one not?
No, they're both 3D.
Okay.
Ace Combat was kind of, I thought it was kind of weak.
Which one? Ace Combat is a realistic jet simulator for the audience, and Star Fox
Yeah,
is
but you didn't
no.
really get much variety in the type of work you were doing. And
well, yeah, well,
in
Hey,
Star Fox, you were practically fighting in many different types of.
environments. Yeah,
Yeah.
space,
Yeah.
atmosphere. Yeah.
Star Fox is also
Right?
fantasy.
We probably should have started there.
Considering the times, that was actually considered to be one of the biggest wastes of.
Which one?
Star Fox?
Yeah.
The original one?
Yeah,
Waste
the
of
original
what?
Star Fox. It was
A waste of
considered
what?
a waste of memory.
The first Star
Really?
Fox?
Yeah.
On the SNES.
That was.
That
was
game
actually
was
a really
epic.
cool game.
That game
yeah.
was beyond
That
epic.
was-
That was one
I
of the-
still have it.
Yeah.
But how do you don't take up memory? I don't understand what you meant by memory. You mean on the cartridge
like
of a
storage
SNES?
space for the actual game.
Yeah, but you didn't store anything in the cartridge-based system. It was just a cartridge.
Yeah,
It was
I'm
a-
talking
Talking
about
about
the
a bigger
actual
PCB
game
board?
data that you loaded up every time you played the game. I'm not talking about game saves. They didn't
You're
have those.
saying
What? No, you're talking about a Super Nintendo.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's a
Super
cartridge. You
Nintendo.
don't have memory sticks for a Super Nintendo.
Yeah, I'm not talking about.
You're
saying
saying it's a
saving-
waste of memory, though.
Yeah, I guess I should say ROM, right?
But
You're
it's
saying-
a cartridge. It doesn't
you're
matter.
saying it's a waste of a cartridge.
Yeah.
No,
It's-
it was
What?
believed that to have many different types of stages with different types of environments. A lot of programmers found it to be pretty daunting because they couldn't put much into the games.
Oh, you mean for the SNES programming format?
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, okay. Now
Yeah,
that
it
makes
was
that
that makes more sense.
Star Fox was considered to be one of the biggest waste of space.
space. I see what you mean, and I understand what you're saying now.
But everybody loved it.
Yeah, no,
But that doesn't have anything to do
check
with
it
the
out.
game itself. That's just how they decided to package the game.
You
or
Star
the data
Fox-
for the game.
Star Fox was 3D.
Mm-hmm.
So imagine out of the bits they had in use,
Mm-hmm.
everything was basically like an animated scene.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
in Star Fox, all the scenes were like exact. You
Do
couldn't
you
even
remember
blow
how many
something up.
bits Star
It was-
Fox was?
It was really pretty much like playing a movie out.
Mm-hmm.
You get what I'm
In a
saying?
way, but-
If you wanted to shoot in a hitbox in that game, it better be dead on. And then at the end, right, you would go through a Death Star. You know how it is going through the Death Star,
Yeah, they
right?
had those
You gotta keep
sections.
zooming on and everything. That it was just automated animations, which do take up a lot of memory. You couldn't. That was the
Well,
thing.
no. Everything was rendered real time. It wasn't like they had a pre-rendered scene like they do in like Final Fantasy. where
Yeah,
they-
no, it was that one was pre-rendered.
No, they weren't
The
pre-rendered.
one,
Those were locked.
there was one that you fight the last guy with the monkey face dude, and I played that game a million times. Dude, trust me on this one. In the last scene, it was completely animated because I was like, I want to fly through that because that's when Descent came out,
Oh, man,
and
I
Descent
love-
was nuts. You guys know what I'm talking about when I talk about Descent?
I just absolutely loved it whenever I actually failed in a game and got a game over, the monkey would laugh at you.
Yeah.
Is that what you mean?
Yeah,
Or-
no, when you
Yeah,
you fight through this really hard real time level,
Mhm.
and you're all shooting around in the hitbox, and your plane is flying or whatever, and then there's this last part when you go like through this curve that is like a
Yeah.
spiral.
That
You
was-
couldn't possibly animate through it. You can move a little bit left and right, but it didn't. It was basically an animation. It had to be because you couldn't have that kind of control on a Super Nintendo. Straight up, you couldn't.
The
That's
thing where it was like going around in the curve like. all
yeah,
around.
but there's
That
one
wasn't-
final one that's
That was
an
rendered
animation.
real time. It was just that they pull control away from you and make the plane go through it automatically.
Yeah, that's
They
an
still do
animated
it in real-
scene.
They still do it in real time though. They don't pre-render it.
Oh, you think it? Well, I mean, to put the flight path on the plane, that's pretty much pre-rendering. I mean,
No,
I know
no,
it's not.
pre-rendering.
It's not like you go from gameplay to animation, right? I know that's. I'm not saying that.
Yeah, I'm not saying that they didn't animate it, but I'm saying that they didn't pre-render it. They didn't.
If you put
pre-record it, 'cause
if you put a flight path on it,
That's called scripted, not.
that's
yeah,
scripted.
it's scripted,
not-
but it's
that's
still.
not animate. That would be scripted, and that's. the word.
I don't understand what.
Scripted events are things like in a.
Call of Duty
Call
where
of
a
Duty
call
use a lot of
explodes
them.
or a wall explodes.
Like, okay, check this out. When you're in Halo
Mhm.
and you're sitting in an airplane and you can check your gun or switch your gun or whatever, that's real time, okay?
Yeah.
In this game, every time
But
I
it's
went
still-
through that hole,
Mhm.
the airplane did the same exact thing, and I
Yeah.
beat the game like 30 times. I know you're saying it's not like some, but it is
But then in Halo, when you're sitting in the thing, switching your gun out, that's all you can do. You can't move around.
That's true.
That's still scripted in the same sense because you can't move around on your own. You're just sitting in the plane.
But if the plane looks exactly the same, it doesn't change velocity, it doesn't change speed.
But the
They
one in
slow
Halo
it
doesn't
down.
either.
You think they actually slowed that plane down and actually they wasted the memory like he said? Because you're saying that they wasted the memory.
Well, if
How
I'm
long
not
that
rendered
was
it, it would be a waste of memory.
I don't feel that it was a waste of memory, but a lot of programmers did.
Well, as far as I'm concerned, I think that is pre-rendered.
I think what you mean is that they didn't use the memory that the cartridge had available. Because when I'm actually thinking about what the game had in it, they did not have a lot of texture data. They had a lot of models, but they didn't actually have any textures that they used to render stuff. And I think that they were actually pretty conservative, and that's why, they
Yeah,
say
that's
that you
what's
have this much
interesting.
more space on the cartridge. Why did you use that up?
Well, I think they used it up
Let's see how
basically.
big the ROM actually was.
Well, can you read on game mechanics? See how far we off marker. Read that first
Well,
wiki.
it's game mechanics are constructs of rules intended to produce an enjoyable game or gameplay. All games use mechanics. However, theories and styles differ as to their ultimate importance to the game. In general, the process and study of game design are efforts to come up with game mechanics that allow for people playing a game to have a fun and engaging experience.
Hold on, I think it's pretty good.
So,
Do you think we've
you want
done
me to keep
that?
going?
No, have we done that while we've been talking?
To some extent, but we've been kind of talking on the gamer level, not on the nobody. Or
There's
non-gamer
nowhere
level.
in the world. Look, this is the thing I don't like about game mechanics, and I'm talking about strategy game mechanics. It's 2012. Everyone in the world knows what a video game is. They've been playing Pong.
Well.
They've been playing. It's impossible not to know what a video game is. Our target. There's no one in the world, dude, who doesn't know what video. I don't know how else to say it. We're not gonna reach out to some old person who's dying in their diapers because they don't know what video games are. I'm sorry, I just don't want to play that game. If you're gonna sit here and try to recreate and define video games in a dictionary format, you're out of your mind.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's all I'm trying to say right now. There's no reason to try to talk to people that don't like video games. Besides, if they didn't want to hear more about video games, they wouldn't even know what one was and they wouldn't be listening to it. You have to speak to your audience.
Yeah,
Our
that's
audience
what it
plays
is.
video games. The people who are going to be listening to this play video games.
I
So let's
think
keep
so.
it on point. I don't. If whoever you got advice from on that, I'll talk to them in detail.
Malcolm.
Yeah, well, because that doesn't make any sense at all. We make, you got to talk about how much money you make on video games all the time in podcasts and without. And you know what it is? Angry Birds. You pull a rubber band back and you let stuff fly.
Mhm.
Game
I-
mechanics,
It's a
great.
I
very
didn't know
simple
that
game
until you
mechanics.
guys
It-
mentioned
it-
it. I didn't know there was a game like
I-
that.
It's,
There's-
And I'm a heavy gamer.
What game?
Angry Birds?
Birds.
It's outside of his demographic.
Uh-huh.
Unless you have a
But
smartphone.
again,
Right.
they did not do anything. They did nothing really new. Like
Nothing,
we had the
you know-
physics for that in the N64 days, and
You
before
know-
that even.
Well,
And-
we had it since, what's his name, Newton.
I
I mean, like,
Yeah,
the physics and
the,
things was, like,
the
almost-
understanding of physics and computers being able to calculate the physics. But they didn't do anything new. They just made it memorable. They had memorable characters and stuff.
You know what?
And Angry Birds. Mhm.
You know what Angry Birds
Really?
reminds me of? A Flash game I played on Armor Games called Crush the Castle.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
it reminds me of that in terms of like
Yeah.
virtually everything. Except
Angry Birds is not new. That game has been made before,
Yeah,
but just
many
not with
times.
birds.
It's just called a game. It is a game called Squidbillies. on Adult Swim is one of the major ones that just manipulates game mechanics and physics. But when you talk about game mechanics, it really is.
Don't forget about Tank, where you're trying to shoot another tank and
that's called
countering
Tank
Battlezone and stuff.
Battlezone.
That was on the Atari.
I would think of Worms. Even Worms is off the hook for that alone. But when you're talking about game mechanics, the what do you think turns people off about certain game mechanics? I mean, Angry Birds is popular to everyone. It's something
Turns
that
off people who don't want something that's extremely
Except for
simple.
me, I think it's rigged.
Well, okay,
What
fine,
the
fair
fuck?
enough. I mean, I'm just saying, like, well, I'm not a big fan of Angry Birds. That's not my point, right? The thing about it is that if you play game mechanics that you have to learn like Street Fighter, it turns everybody off from the game. It makes a less interesting game. Everybody can pull a rubber
Yeah,
band
like
back and shoot
unlimited
something.
number of combos and shit.
And just because it's Angry Birds, I think it's because you're right.
Okay, I shouldn't have cussed.
Yeah, thank you.
John was right about. Did I go this whole down without cursing?
Just about, yes. About 55 minutes.
Congratulations.
I got my record card.
Yay! Let's all celebrate.
Well, without a doubt, the game mechanics of every game and how appeasing it is the point I'm trying to make. Some games are just boring.
Yeah.
Because everybody else knows how to play them before you do, like Halo and Street Fighter.
Guitar Hero.
Oh, don't say that within and around. I
Those
was
are
just about to
games
say,
that
where's it?
literally have no timer, and yet they're
What
the
is
most
going on in
popular
this game?
thing. Like the Tamagotchi, for instance.
The who?
The Tamagotchi. It was this little electronic thing that was like a
Tamagotchi.
digital pet.
Tamagotchi,
Oh,
dude.
yeah.
Tamagotchi, actually.
I guess we're talking about game
Tamago is
interface,
egg
but
in
the
Japanese,
mechanics in that game is like a Casio watch, right? You know Mr. Game & Watch?
Yeah, but it's like you're babysitting it for 24/7. So
Yeah, I don't like
Like,
that.
yeah.
I don't like having to.
yeah,
The mechanics
Yeah.
of
I
the game
remember I
force you
had
to
one,
have
but
it
I
with
got
you.
rid of it because I was, like, I don't know, 3rd grade, and the teachers were always taking it away.
That's funny. Well, I guess it was appeasing to girls because it was a mother-like game in a little person that you can keep
Oh,
in your
so what
pocket.
does that say about me?
What are you trying to say, Chris?
Yeah.
Well, you could have a parent like.
Am I a chick? No.
No, I mean a parenting type vibe, right? Or a gardening type vibe. I'm just saying a motherly. Every mothers give birth. You don't. I'm just saying. It's like, that's where I was coming from with that. But
Unless you count that one.
pro-feminist.
Unless
Chris.
you count that one Arnold Schwarzenegger movie where.
Oh, you're so
Oh,
funny,
yeah.
Mr. Mom or whatever. Wow.
Yeah, that's it.
The physics, the game mechanics, and that. Yeah, we don't want to talk about, right?
That wasn't even a game. That was a movie, man.
Well, I'm just saying. Well, games, music, video games, and music help the physics. Like you said with Guitar Hero. But the best game mechanics, I think, does have to go to Guitar Hero.
Is
Yeah,
it
I want-
Guitar-
Guitar Hero.
Yeah, as
I
far as the
always thought-
physics are
I
concerned.
always thought
I think
Guitar
mechanics,
Hero was like
physics.
this
Guitar Hero
huge-
has no physics.
No,
huge
sorry.
thing
Well,
about
basically
trying
just
time
pushing
to
buttons.
time to hit.
But that's
That's
mechanics,
mechanics,
not
that's-
physics.
that's-
That would
Physics
definitely
is
be
the
The
same way
distance
as
in
well.
that doesn't
between
have skill.
somebody's uncertainty, unfortunately, I learned yesterday, was
Unless you
physics.
count your ego.
Uncertainty.
Yeah, uncertainty in time between you touch something and you don't, it's physics, I mean, seriously, look, if the PlayStation controller can't tell that the button's pushed in a certain amount of time, it's physics. We're arguing semantics,
Yeah.
that's my bad. It's not physics, okay, John, you have to know. There you go. And what I'm saying is that if it goes down from game mechanics, yeah, the closest thing to a simulation of a guitar is pretty cool. What do you think about that, Jess? You're the one who plays that game all the time. Guitar Hero.
I can't say Guitar Hero and playing the guitar is at all close.
Actual time now.
I know people who can play both great. I know people who can't do either great. I know people who can do either or great.
Oh,
I
really?
think it really depends. One of the best guitarists I know can't play Guitar Hero.
Does it have absolutely to do nothing with the timing?
It's Guitar Hero to guitar is DDR to dancing.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any
Yeah,
sense. It's
but
not realistic, or.
I mean, like,
Hey, take as long as you want. Go ahead.
looking at it from an outside perspective, maybe, but in practice, not even close.
Well, I guess the real question I was trying to ask is, do you feel that the what do you call it? What makes that game so appealing? I mean, does it really feel like you're playing guitar, or
Not so much playing guitar, it's sort of
It's like it's
accomplishing
practically feels like
something
you're the one
down
playing
to-
it. Like you're the one playing the music.
Sure. I guess that's what it is, and I guess that brings me to my major point.
Which is perfect for people who can't play a guitar or play the drums or anything like that.
Is what do you call it? In every game, you want to feel like you're the one doing it, right?
Yeah.
And I guess brings it back to Star Fox. That part, me and John got into that long argument. I was so pissed off as a kid because I couldn't navigate my way through it, and that's what I mean by game mechanics. They'll give you all this. You're all RR, left, and I'm dodging, and I tried all this way to get to this monkey face dude, and I can't even do the funnest, like, airplane part, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, I would rather die every time to get to the boss and get through that thing myself.
So it's like a cutscene, you have no interaction, you
don't
cannot
have any
fly that
interaction,
plane.
it just
Unless you're
plane
doing a
flies
quick
automatically
time.
through the tunnel sort of thing.
And I feel that game mechanics that do stuff like that, just so you can feel like you're in the system, I guess game mechanics is what? The illusion that you're there. Right? Through a visual medium.
Isn't that what most modern games are for? To make you
Well,
think you're there?
That's
Yeah.
the whole purpose of a game, I mean. I hope.
Of course, really,
No.
we all know
I
what
always thought
games
games were meant for like improving your own coordination or else trying to waste time.
Yeah.
Which I did both flawlessly.
I really just, games are just there for me. I just want to have fun with the game, honestly. I don't really think about some of the like mechanics, etc.
But that's why we're having this discussion.
Thank
to
you.
Think more on a critical level than someone who just consumes. We want to be
you're designing
educated.
games.
Yes, we're going to
Although
school for this stuff.
Yeah.
We-
Although I always do try and get an interest in the game's story.
The stories. Sorry, go ahead.
Like, if you think of it in a broader view, it's all simulations. How many people have died in a Call of Duty game?
Too many.
We kill the entire population of the world in Call of Duty.
Like 10
every-
times over by now.
That's Drake. That's Drake from Uncharted.
Oh, yes.
Killing the entire population of the world.
One
Or
person.
how many times
Because-
are you going to be able to fight an alien somewhere?
Modern Warfare always managed to make me angry.
Like I said, I guess game mechanics is really favorability, and I find all first-person shooters to be abhorrible. Like I don't understand the point of it personally, and I wish they would really just go away. I mean, I know as far as because I think game mechanics are so limited by everybody having to make a first-person shooter. It's killed video games. All video games are not about shooting stuff and shooting other people from other countries. It's really not. It used to be Centipede, dude, Galaga, NBA Jam. You know, like video games have gone to.
What was that game where you were a hacker and you had to type stuff into a command prompt?
Shadow Run, which was one of my favorite games of all time. I love that game. Oh man, there's all girls
I never
dancing and
managed
stuff.
to buy it because I always ended
You
up...
gotta get an
buying it
emulator,
online.
dude. Well,
Personally, I kind of prefer RPGs for game mechanics, especially one of the, and one of my favorite kinds of things for game mechanic is one you might not think of that much: customization.
Customization.
That's
Yeah,
fun.
like
Customizing a
you mean of
character.
a
man.
weapon or of the customizing of the menus?
The more
I think one of the
customization, the
best
better.
one of the best early customizable games where you could customize your units had to be Warzone 2100.
Hello.
Hello,
That-
sir.
Though little played and underappreciated, it was one of the best games I ever played.
Yeah.
In fact, it was my first
These are
game.
for regulars.
And
Is
so
that
I
what
got
you got?
2150.
Yeah, well,
Cool.
It was like the only game I ever played
Nice to meet you.
hyper.
yeah,
So,
for
you are-
customization.
David.
I was thinking like character customization. Yes, and
Cool.
games nowadays,
right now.
if you don't have
Housed in this
if
thing.
you don't have
Yeah, you can
preset
open it,
characters,
look at it.
you can get some rather
David.
diverse
It's not
options for customization.
Does everything just take to it?
One example
Yeah.
One example that I'll mention
have to
is
look
the
at the back.
MMO Star
It's
Trek
so cool.
Online.
Oh, I
That
Striking this
thing
Kindle
has
for
an
Why are you
epic
doing that?
character creator.
I have some sort of obsession with Star Trek Online.
Well,
But is it your customization actually?
I know,
part
man.
of
He's like
it?
fourth in
Or is it
he's like-
just
he's like
display?
trying to
If it's
get
just
to a
display, it
rank.
doesn't actually affect the game.
Well, we can call this.
No game
We can
mechanics,
convince
it's
this.
not
We're gonna edit this out. This is just practice anyway.
Customization.
Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
it is.
Well, with that, we will end our podcast. Thank you
Wasted
for
your
listening.
time, sorry.